agroecology and nature-based solution for sustainable land management, examples from biosphere reserve in Europe and in Brazil. This is the second of a series of webinars that are part of collaborative work between Biosphere Reserve Thematic Group of the IUCN Commission on Ecosystem Management, co-led by Sarah and me, and the UNESCO Man and Biosphere Program. So the webinars are recorded and shared on the YouTube channel of the IUCN Commission on Ecosystem Management. Sarah is already recorded. I hope it's everyone okay with the recording. These webinars are related to emerging issues present on the international agenda, and we seek to contextualize them to the territory. In this case, to Biosphere Reserve. No, so next year we have 4 more webinar planned. So stay tuned for more information. We will provide you more information soon. Well, before giving way to my partner, I will briefly introduce myself. One moment, I'm going to accept 2 more colleagues, or maybe Sarah, could you? Okay. Yes, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Esperanza Arnés. I'm currently a researcher at the Center of Research in Environmental Geography, belonging to the National Autonomous University of Mexico. And I work on issues related to agroecology and peasant farming systems and peasant food systems. My relationship with the Biosphere Reserve dates back to 2016, when I was working as a program officer at the UNESCO office in Quito, in Ecuador. Well, this period allowed me to be linked both to the MAP program and to the action in the territories that were carried out in some of the Biosphere Reserve with which we collaborate in several Indian countries. So, well, without further delay, I give the floor to my colleague Sarah Burbi, who is going to introduce herself and the rest of the participants today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Esperanza, and welcome everyone. Very pleased to co-share this meeting with you, with this webinar. We're going to have two very interesting speakers today, and then a little question and answer panel discussion. But I'm going to introduce briefly myself. My name is Sarah Burbi. I work in Italy at the moment. Originally I was a veterinarian, and then I basically changed a bit my career, and I'm focusing now on agroecological transitions and all problems related to engaging with producers in a participatory way to address issues related to sustainability, agroecology, agroecological practices, and climate change. So I have experience in Europe and in Latin America predominantly, and I'm collaborating with a specialist advanced studies university, the Sant'Anna School of Advanced Study in Pisa, in Italy. And I actually live near a biosphere reserve. What you see behind is the northernmost biosphere reserve in Tuscany, in central Italy. So I'm going to briefly describe what's going to happen during this session. Basically, we're going to share about an hour and a half today, and we'll have the opportunity to listen to two very interesting speakers. Professor Inger Elisabeth Moren from Norway will present experiences from biosphere reserves in Europe, and Kaline Rossi from Brazil, who will talk about Central Amazon Biosphere Reserve in Brazil. So after the presentations, you will have a chance to address your questions to the speakers. And but if you want to write in the chat while they are presenting, you're welcome to write your questions there. Please just write a Q, capital Q letter in front of your question so we can quickly identify later your questions. So going to introduce Professor Moran first. And she's professor in applied ecology. She's UNESCO chair on sustainable heritage and environmental management at the University of Bergen in Norway. And during her presentation, she will show us how UNESCO biosphere reserves and obviously also the associated Man on the Biosphere program set out to a perfect framing to learn from and co-produce new knowledge on how we can transform the food systems in more sustainable directions. So this is because basically biosphere reserves offer or often represent multifunctional landscapes where the goal is essentially to reconcile livelihoods and conservation goals through finding sustainable pathways, especially emphasizing local community engagement. So essentially, she will show us examples that highlight how biosphere reserves, the majority of them are situated in landscapes that are actually food-producing landscapes or seascapes, and we have to consider different settings, and how important these landscapes and seascapes are for the people that live and work in those areas. So she will show us the challenges and the opportunities based on the case studies that she is well knowledgeable about, primarily focused in European settings. So thank you very much, Professor Moran. Inge, the floor is yours. You're free to share your presentation. And welcome to this webinar.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I hope that you all hear me now. I had a bit of trouble with the sound earlier. And now
Good.
I will try to share my screen. Let's see. Do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, and if I put it into presenter mode, do you see it in presenter mode?
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not now.
And now it's the speaker presenter mode. We see the 2 slides on your notes.
Interesting.
I think it's
Then
which one is that? Maybe the 3 dots, and there's something on the 3 dots.
3 dots.
I think you have to share the tab or the window. Maybe you're sharing the full screen.
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
I am sharing the full screen probably. So I'll stop sharing and I'll try again.
Okay. I have always the same problem, so don't you worry.
Yes, this is a new setup, so that's why.
No friendly at all.
Let's see if I do this. Do you see my screen now?
Yeah.
And now in the presenter mode, maybe?
Wait.
Or is
not yet, not yet.
No, not yet.
do you still see my notes and everything?
Not, well, a little bit,
Just
yeah.
the slides. Just the slides.
Slides and the bottom part of the notes.
Could it be next to the presentation mode icon at the bottom? There's display settings. Maybe there's something in there.
But do you see it now? No.
Not yet.
Very strange. Let's see if I do this.
Well, first start presenting and then share the screen and select the presentation instead of the whole screen. That's maybe a way.
I'm sorry.
No. Maybe you can share the presentation by email to us, and let's try to present
Let's try it one more time.
yeah.
This is normally no problem at all, but I have a new screen and a new setup, so.
It's your first time with this
Yes,
modality.
yes,
There's always
because I'm
something to learn.
not in my office, and that's why things are a bit weird. Now nothing
Don't you worry.
seems to work. What about me sending you the presentation? Should we have the other presentation first, maybe?
Kaline, if you're ready.
Yes.
Okay.
I can go.
Cool.
Maybe we can present or introduce Kaline. And okay. Well, Kaline Rossi from Brazil. She's a forest engineer, UNESCO consultant and focal point for the UNESCO LVMH Amazon Biosphere Reserve Project, Amazonas, Brazil. Today she's going to talk to us about the case of community-based initiative of essential oil production in the Central Amazon Biosphere Reserve in the Amazonas in Brazil, and how these initiatives based on sustainable practices, agroforestry, and technology adapt to the Amazonian communities are boosting the economy and helping to keep the forest stand and well managed. So welcome, Kaline. The floor is yours. Let's see if the presentation is going on.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great.
Not completely. It's a PDF.
Yes, I will put in full.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Great. So thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here to talk about this very exciting project that we are putting together with local partners. I was hoping that my colleague would make a short introduction about the biosphere reserve, so I might go a little bit slow to talk about it, and then I'm going to what I have to talk today with you. I'm not a native English speaker, so you might feel some confusions about the language, and I hope you forgive me. But if there's any word or any misunderstanding, you can write there, and then I will make my best to reply you. So as Esperanza introduced me, I'm a forest engineer, and I have a master's degree in regenerative economics. I studied at Schumacher College in the UK. And I have a large experience with non-timber forest products and traditional communities, indigenous as well, especially in Amazonia. I'm an Amazonian. I was born in Acre, and I live in Manaus now to support and to work with this project at UNESCO. So my presentation will be the same that I did for the G20 group here in Manaus last month. So might be a little bit redundant, but I will move on what I think will fit more the subject of this conversation. So my presentation is structured a little bit about the biosphere reserves and UNESCO's Amazon project, and how this project is supporting this community-based value chain. I will talk about breu branco and rosewood, which are two species that have been they are being developed in this area. We'll talk about very briefly about the chemistry and why this is important for this kind of supply chain, and about the agroforest system that will be it's being prepared to have their first batch of rosewood oil, and will be like the first in the Amazon that it's community-led, and it's from agroforestry system that it's been there for 15 years actually. So very briefly, biosphere reserves are UNESCO's designation for very special areas around the world. Locally, globally, it's focused on consider spaces and biomes, to be more specific, that can be placed for sustainable learning, development, and also conciliating conservation and development, economical development. Regionally, it has a very strong action on building bridge and connecting cultural and biosphere biodiversity islands and this very special place for animals and plants, and also people, especially indigenous and traditional communities. And locally, it's a place to innovate and to invest in initiatives that are adapted to context-specific realities. And why is this important? Why the biosphere reserves are important? As I said, they are learning places to establish scientific basis between the relationship between people and their environment. And because of the local governance, it's also a very strong place to promote the biodiversity conservation, and also knowledge exchange between these people and researchers and people that are working on the floor. So it's an international designation, but the greatest outcome, it's the people that live there and then also working to support this environment. So very briefly about the biosphere reserves around the world, we have, I think this number is updated, but it's 759 biosphere reserves around the world, over 136 countries, and home of 300 million people. And we have all over the world. In Amazonia, which is the project that we are working on, we have 8 biosphere reserves, and the Central Amazon, it's one of them. So this project, it's called Amazon Project, Connecting Amazonian Biosphere Reserves. It's a project from the UNESCO MAB program, and supported by LVMH, a French company, a French group of company. And it's working together to reconcile conservation of biodiversity with sustainable use. So the goal is to reduce the deforestation and degradation of the forest area, conservation and biodiversity in ecosystems, and promoting alternative livelihoods for communities and indigenous people. As I said, in the Amazon, we have 8 biosphere reserves in 4 countries, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, and Peru. Hopefully soon we will have in Costa Rica. Maybe they will have some news in this COP of biodiversity COP. So these biosphere reserves represent 5% of the Amazonian basin, and it's home of 1.3 million people that share similar challenges across the borders. We know that these designations, these geographical designations are just our minds, because on the floor, the rivers and the territories, they have no boundaries. So they share these same issues and also tribes. So this is a map, very simple, showing the Brazilian network of biosphere reserves. We have all the biomes, Caatinga and Cerrado, Cinturão Verde, Mata Atlântica, Pantanal, Serra do Espinhaço, and Central Amazon, which is this red marked here. It's huge. It's 19 million hectares of land and waters, and it's a big challenge to manage such a huge territory. So as I said, one of the the main objectives of this initiative is support the sustainable activities from these people that live there and sharing their knowledge and thinking about innovation. So this is one of the things that makes me more excited that this initiative is tackling exactly that. So the main areas that we are supporting in this biosphere reserve, Central Amazon Biosphere Reserve, it's to improve the infrastructure for the local people that lives in the protected areas inside the biosphere reserve, to support the local organization and governance arrangements, such committees and conversations and forums around the territory, support youth networks and promoting training and capacity buildings, also supporting directly to sustainable production systems and the value chain of these activities that are happening on the floor. So one of the questions that we were thinking about of how can we support the value adding into this biodiversity supply chain is the main issues that people there have their products, but sometimes they don't have the access to the market, they don't have structure to produce, they don't have support to develop this supply chain. So we were wondering how can we support, promote these molecules, because I was talking about essential oils, and help them to develop their activities and their lands and their conservation and also their income, and also to support the ecosystem regeneration. So we partnered with Inatu Amazonia and IDESAN, which is a local institution here in Amazonas, and IDESAN has started this initiative for the past 5 years, and now Inatu, it's a collective brand. It's led by 5 social organizations and have the technical assistance from IDESAN. So they are a brand made of 5 associations, and each association have a different product that they have this brand, and they are working on opening markets for these products, not only raw material, but also products directly to the final consumer. So they are, can you see this window with you here, or it's just me? The small.
Which one?
No, right? Okay, no, I thought that my face and your face were showing here in the PowerPoint. It's not, right?
No.
Okay, so we partnered with IDESAN, and our objective was to support this community-based supply chain. And in this case, they have a small mill to produce breu branco, which is essential oil that comes from a resin. It's the same. It's a Buceraceae family. It's the same of frankincense. I don't know if you know about it. So it's a very aromatic resin. In the past, was used just for to impermeabilize the boats. I don't know how to say that in English, but now has become a very important source of income to this community because of this small mill that it's working there. So the idea is to promote greater financial return for the extractivist family, to increase the share of social biodiversity products in the Amazon economy, increasing partners, clients, sales volume and value, to generate forest conservation, because this supply chain, they're not planted, they are native, so people go in the forest to collect. So when you have forest that it's very well managed and people get their income from it, it's more valuable for everyone that it's working around that area. And also to bring quality products to the market and traceability of origin, because this area that they are working, they have a FSC certification, and for timber products and also for non-timber products. So this area follows all the rules for the certification, and it's also very well conducted by this community, which have been trained for the past 5 years to work on that. So we partnered with them to support the essential oil production in the Central Amazon Biosphere Reserve, which is the idea to reconcile the environment preservation and also sustainable economic activities. A little bit about what is copal beech or braille. It's the proteum species. In some places they call differently, but I just put it proteum. That would be easier to search if you want to look after. As I said, it's a essential oil produced by a resin that it's formed in the tree trunk from these Buceracea families, and it's because of as a defense reaction to insect attacks. So when the insect comes there and then try to eat the wood, the tree produces this resin to protect it, to protect the scar, and it's a very aromatic resin. And this community decided to distill to transform the resin into essential oil. So it's a very rich in limonene substance that it's very used for inflammatory disease and expectorant and bronchodilator and other respiratory disorders. And for aromatherapy, which is one of the main markets, it's used to clean energetically the environment, help to release emotions, mourning, and also for meditation that helps the connection with the divine. And some indigenous people used to use this in the opening of their ceremonies of their religious ceremony. It has a very woody and spicy aroma, and it's very cool. And in the past, these producers, they just took off the resin and sell to the company that used to make this thing for boats. And now with the small mill, they sell the resin to the usina. The oil is extracted, and the waste can be sold to the industries that still make the boat impermeabilization. So the producer gets twice. They can sell the resin to the usine, to essential oil, and also the waste to the other industries. So this is an example of circularity economy, where there's no waste in the supply chain. And also the water that comes out from the distillation, it's the hydrolotto, which is also can be used for cosmetic purpose. So the rosewood oil would be the palo rosa or pau rosa in Portuguese. It's a plant from called Aniba roseodora. It's currently classified as endangered in the national list of species threatened of extinction in Brazil specifically. This tree has been harvested for centuries, mainly by small producers to cut down the trees and take off the oil. In the past, the oil from this species was taken from the tree, the bark, the center of the tree. And it's very important because it's very rich on linalool, which is a substance very has a high commercial interest. This linalool, it's about 70 to 90% of this oil's composition. And it's an excellent fixative for perfumes and all other cosmetics. And basically it was almost extinct because of the Chanel No. 5 supply chain, that it's one of the main aromas present in this perfume. And linalool is also an aroma rounder. Thinking about the composition of the perfumes, it brings this quality of wood and flower and fresh, which is very unique. So just a few data that this project supported to the development of this first pau rosa process, and they had a test showing that even actually was the difference between, what's the difference between the pau rosa, the rosewood oil from the bark and also the other produced by the trees and leaves. So basically on the right side, this is the chromatherapy, showing the composition of the linalool oil from the bark, from the tree that had to be cut down. So it's almost 90% of linalool, and the rest are very irrelevant. And when you look to the essential oil extracted from the leaves, it's a slightly different, and the aroma, it's a bit different as well. It's more like petit grain. It's like a fresh aroma, more fresh, but also has a smell of wet rain. So it's a very rich aroma. And the linalool, which is the most important substance, it's up to 70%, and the other substances are more divided. So in order to be viable to get in this industry for perfumery or other companies that are interested in linalool, this essential oil that comes from leaves should have there's a chemical process that I will not be able to explain to you, but it's called rectification, that takes off all the other substances and focus on the one that they desire, which is the linalool. And with this rectification, it's possible to get 95 to 99% of the essential oil focus on the linalool. So this is a data that it's ongoing, it's not closed. They are doing the tests and trying to, the next step is to talk to perfumeries to understand how this new product could be presented to the market, as has a different smell from the traditional essential oil from pau rosa. So I think it's a very interesting discussion, because nowadays we have plenty of aroma, and the synthetic industry, basically we can do anything, synthesizing some molecule. And what we think it's very important is that we could offer to the market, for the people that are interested to use less fossil fuel based products, it's this synthetic, it's the natural ingredients. That's why we are doing this study, to understand how can we support the use of more natural molecules into the market. So a bit of the linalool market, which is the main substance of interest from pau rosa. It's a huge global market, and it's focused on pharmaceutical, chemical, and cosmetic and personal care. Has growing from the past year, and it's almost 90% of the linalool in the market could come from the rosewood oil. And for example, just to clarify why is that important, there's a data that it's ongoing, it's not published, but soon will be, that to extract 1 kilo of a synthetic molecule such as linalool, there are 200 kilos of waste, and it's mostly petrochemical waste, which is it's not sustainable. And if we think about the essential oil from the leaves of a place which has been used to restore some area and community base, and also having all their concerns about safety and preservation of the environment, it's a very interesting trade, because if you want to support the forest and the bioeconomy, you have to invest in technology, and also to how to make this more attractive to the market. Not because it's good for the community, but it's good for the planet. And this substance, for example, linalool, can be found in other essential oils, such as coriander, palm rosa, sweet orange, lavender, bay laurel, sweet basil, but in lower quality. Only pau rosa, which is rosewood oil, has like 82 and 90% of linalool. So it's the perfect species to take this substance. So I'm almost finishing. So this project that we are investing to increase the impact has for example, a liter of essential oil, it's up to 2,050 dollars per liter, and it's a very good price for communities that have other products in their area, so they can produce some Brazil nut, they can produce some acai, essential oil, also small objects of wood. So it's another product in their wallet that they can have a good quality of life living there in their communities, and also have their necessities attended. So it's very promising in the market. And this specifically, it's very interesting because in this area where this agroforest system is set up, it's covering 1.45 hectares of 82 individuals of trees, different species of trees. And it used to be a farm in the past, and they recovered this area with this agroforest system. And the first batch that soon will be produced, will be about 21 liters of essential oil, Palo Rosa, which would be, imagine 21 liters plus 2.5 K of dollars. It's a huge amount of money, and it's very promising to have a very big impact in the community. So the idea is to replace the small-scale monoculture to a biodiversity-rich agroforestry, which is the case. This is the seed of Palo Rosa rosewood. It's very beautiful, and also to contribute for ecosystem services and biomass increase and the temperature regulation, water. It's a very I'm sure that you know almost all the benefits that the agroforest system can bring, but when it's focused on a high value species, which is the rosewood, this economic and development impact are very big. So also the other thing is that this species was almost extinct. So it's a very interesting initiative to repopulate the area, and also they have all the licenses to explore, because as it was forbidden, they had a long way to talk to the government, to follow all the instructions to be able to explore. So this is a very big step for them as well. This is Vanderlei. He's the manager of the Guatumã mini oil plant in the RDS Guatumã. And he's a local. He lives there he was born there, and he was trained by this IDESAN project, and now he leads the industry. He takes care of the sources, and also he goes to the fairs and he talks. He's a very multi-function guy, and very warm and very happy to have his life changed by this initiative. So as I said, this initiative can be very important socially and economically as well. The focus is to increase the revenue for these families, and it's about 488 families directly involved in the supply chain, 2.3 million hectares, and they are supporting to have for conservation and management. And they say that it's 100, but it's more than 100% because they did not explore before. So it's a very considerate important income for them. And so this is a initiative that it's a community-led managed inside a protected area, and it's part of the biosphere reserve. So it has a huge importance for the region. Also, it's one of the first that we hope to influence and to inspire other initiatives inside the territory. That is it's not just an economic means of production, and it is an example of how sustainable business practice can be integrated with conservation efforts and promoting a balance between economic and development and environment preservation. So that's what I had to talk to you. thank you. I'm sorry about my English, but I'm free to reply any doubts or to clarify more points. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaline. It was very clear for me. So we are going, we are going to respond the question at the end at the end of the season. So now I would like to know if Inge, are you ready?
We'll see how this
Hopefully.
works, because I've been trying to send the file, but of course it's way too big. I will try one last time to share my screen.
If it doesn't work, don't worry. I managed to get the file. So
You have the file. Wow.
Yeah. So managed somehow.
Wow, that's good. Let's see. Do you see my full presentation now?
Almost.
No, not full, almost full.
Yes, I can see it now.
Yeah,
But we can see it.
yeah, maybe we should just go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I have called this talk Agroecology and Nature-Based Solutions in UNESCO Biosphere Reserves, with examples from Europe. And I work as a professor in applied ecology at the University of Bergen in Norway, which is on the west coast of Norway, so sort of on the edge of the Atlantic. And I work a lot with the biosphere reserves, and I also work a lot with food systems and how to make food systems more sustainable. So this was a great match to be able to talk about these two things together. I want to outline the wider context. I start really wide, and then I'll say something about why biosphere reserves might be perfect test beds or places to learn from when it comes to nature-based solutions and agroecology. And then I'll give some examples from 4 different biosphere reserves, and then I'll try to tie it all together at the end. And then as you know, we're in the midst of a climate crisis, and you can see this guy, he's looking very happy while the house is burning. And we face many challenges today, both locally and nationally, and also internationally.
Kaline?
And
Inge, sorry. We don't see the following slide. We still see the first one.
Yeah.
really,
Now we can.
how
Yeah.
how about now?
Yes.
You see the second slide?
Yeah.
Yes.
We do.
Yes. Now you see the happy guy. Yeah. And just to illustrate that there is a growing mismatch between the global and the local. So when we talk about ecosystem services and contributions from nature to people, people see these big global changes that they can't really do anything about. And that's a growing concern, that things on the ground is sort of beyond your control. But there are a lot of good initiatives, and there is a lot of hardworking people out there, and I will come back to that. So that's just a broader context. And then we have all of these guys. We live on a planet with a lot of other species, and we know that the nature crisis, it's land use change that is the #1 threat to biodiversity. And in the oceans, it's a bit different. It's over harvesting, but we need to face up to that also when it comes to to why we use land for what we do. And of course, most of the land use that we do, about 70% of the ice-free land surfaces have been modified by people. It's in the name of food production. So it's food systems that contribute to this species loss that we see, and that we now sort of coin the nature crisis. So so we sort of have a problem, and it's sort of illustrated by this image taken in 1969 when people went to the moon and looked back at the Earth. And I think that was sort of the very beginning of a strong movement for sustainable development that we have seen since. And of course, the SDGs, they came in 2015. And I think it's a good thing that if you have a problem, you should start first by acknowledging that you do have a problem. That's the very first step, especially if you want to get anywhere solving it. So I think that's we're a good underway for acknowledging this. And then we have some issues, of course, with fossil fuel use, and then the ever increasing economical growth that we're sort of that's how we have rigged our system globally, and we need to get away from that, and we need to get away from business as usual. And you might think, what does this have to do with food systems? And I think it has quite a lot to do with food systems, because as I explained, that most things are connected to our food system, and how we shape and reshape land and also sea areas to feed ourselves and the coming generations. And I think all the SDGs are connected to food somehow. And that's why it's so important to find these alternative forms of producing our food that's not big scale agricultural and industrial agricultural areas. And of course, you probably have seen this many times, but that's just to illustrate that we do take up a lot of space, and our livestock and poultry is also taking up a lot of space. And I think I read this Bar-On et al. Paper, and it was quite boring with a lot of text. And I think Guardian did a great job with these illustrations showing us. This is showing the biomass distribution of all mammals on the planet, where we as human beings and livestock constitute 96%, which is a lot, and only 4% for all other wild mammals, if we put them on a scale. And likewise for the avifauna, 70% is chickens that we breed for food, and 30% is everything else that's wild. So I think that clearly illustrates how incredibly important our food system is to the environment, and to the rest of biodiversity on planet Earth. And then we can sort of think of agriculture in different ways. And this is just a very simple schematic with agriculture and nature sort of together. And that probably illustrates a lot of principles in agroecology. But then we also know that we have agricultural systems very close to nature, but not sort of intermixed. And then we have a full separation between nature and agriculture in many systems as well. So these are just different ways of illustrating that we can have natural components as part of agriculture, or we can separate it out completely. And then you see this schematic of how we can work in incremental. This is from a publication from 2020, Weasel et al. And then you see there are also 3 levels where we can work towards transformational change, and this is sort of the change that most policymakers are demanding. And then we are talking about UNESCO biosphere reserves today, and here you can see the mission statement of the MAB program, Man and the Biosphere program, is to identify and assess changes in the biosphere, ensure basic human welfare and livable environments, study the interrelationships between ecosystems and socioeconomic processes, and promote the exchange and transfer of knowledge. And you can see all these pictures. This is from UNESCO's website. You can see all these pictures are clearly representing either cultural landscapes, which are food producing landscapes, or the food items themselves. And then, as you can see on the right, the 4 strategic objectives of the biosphere reserve program is to conserve, build, facilitate, and empower. And I'm not going to read the under titles there, but as you can see, it's all about sustainable development and biodiversity and cultural diversity conservation. And as you can see, Audrey Osolé, the UNESCO Director General, she has said that the Man and the Biosphere program has laid the scientific foundations for a new harmony between humans and their environment, one that reconciles conservation and development and teaches us how to live with the living world, in the living world, rather than as it's at its expense. So I think the network, the world network of biosphere reserves, I think there's now 759 in 136 different countries, is a great network for looking into agroecology and nature-based solutions. Because most biosphere reserves are situated in rural environments. And of course, it's called the Man and the Biosphere program, so there's always people in these landscapes. And these landscapes are traditionally food-producing landscapes, either some form of agriculture or some form of harvesting natural resources. And I think we can use this program to work and co-produce together with stakeholders, especially farmers and people that run the land. We can learn a lot and find ways of merging old traditions with new technologies and new ways of doing going into the future. Because of course it's not all about conserving the past and the old traditions, but it's also about of course innovating and moving forwards and finding new solutions also, because we encounter new challenges like rapid climate change in some parts of the world. And the fact that these biosphere reserves are situated in these rural areas and have been, in many cases, cultural landscapes for a very long time, I think is a very, very good starting point to move forward from. And in Europe, of course, more than probably other places, this holds true. We have a lot of cultural landscapes, which are working landscapes and food producing landscapes all over the continent, and many of the biosphere reserves are situated in some of these landscapes that have sort of an iconic value locally, but also nationally and even internationally in some of these countries. And the network of European and North American biosphere reserves is called EuroMap. And we see this, we have meetings every other year. We have EuroMap conference, and we see a lot of focus on agroecology and sustainable food systems when we participate in the EuroMap meetings. And here you can see that the background picture of this slide is Nordhordland Biosphere Reserve here on the west coast in Norway, just north of Bergen. I was part of writing the application for this biosphere reserve, so I know it quite well. And as you can see, it's a very rugged landscape, and it's broken up on the outer coast with lots of islands and relatively flat areas, and then you get into the fjord systems and you get much higher mountains, and there is a big transition from the coast to the mountain areas, and it's rather large. It's 7,000 square kilometers. And as you can see in this landscape, you can't really have big modern industrial agriculture. It's not physically possible. And I think a lot of the biosphere reserves, at least across Europe, are examples of these landscapes that are sort of a little marginalized or not fully developed into modern agricultural systems. So they are in mountain areas or on coastal areas or in areas that haven't had the potential to sort of fully be developed into large industrial agricultural fields. And this is very much the case in Norway. We only have one biosphere reserve, and this is it. And as you can imagine, people have used both the land, but of course also the sea substantially. And agroecology is all about working with nature instead of against nature. So there has to be some circular economy thinking in these old systems. Nowadays, of course, we can get external inputs, but the way these landscapes were developed, there wasn't much input other than from the local environment. So these are quite old cultural landscapes. They go back 6,000 years at least on the coast here. And at the outer coast, we have the coastal heathland system, which was used for grazing, which you can see here. And there's been a connection between getting the resources from the sea and from land. And they're often very small infields or cultivated fields, while the outfields, they were much larger, and that's where they kept, for instance, livestock like this old breed of sheep. And of course, they combined this with resources from the ocean, and we still do to some extent. So local people, of course, use both freshwater resources and land resources in combination where that is available. And that's important to understand when you look at the food system holistically, and also looking into agroecology and nature-based solutions. And here I've summed up some of the points I think characterize quite a few of the biosphere reserves I visited in Europe. They often have very long traditions. The different food producing traditions. It's based on local natural resource utilization. They have had great experience with circular economy, so they've been quite innovative, reusing and using materials in different parts of the food system. And this is often very connected to a rich, intangible cultural heritage. And then these landscapes are often situated in landscapes with a diversity of ecological gradients and not very flat and monotonous areas. There is a close link between cultural heritage and cultural landscapes. And then one thing that fascinates me quite a bit is pluriactivity, that the farmer wasn't just the farmer was also a fisherman, for instance, in our case in Nordhordland. And I'm sure in other cases, people have had to have many skills in order to make a living. And then also still people that live in these rural areas, they show moderation and austerity and maybe not self-rescue, but self-sufficiency is a core principle as well. And as you can see here, because only 3% of Norway can be cultivated, we have quite a lot of land that can be grazed. And here you can see that we have a strong tradition with making different cheeses and cheese or milk-based products because of it. And then, of course, we also have taken advantage of both cultivated species and wild species that grow in these areas and have lots of traditions pertaining to conservation of berries and fruits, both wild and domesticated. And then also we have an initiative called the Taste of Nordhordland that is developed by the Biosphere Reserve Organization. And the objective is to promote local food and drink and strengthen the actors' value creation and promote the region in general. And as you can see, they made this very nice emblem that the producers can use on their products, and it's becoming more and more used with different actors in the food system in this biosphere reserve, which is very positive because you have to, of course, sell your products if you are to make a living of your agricultural areas. So Colleen also talked quite a bit about social economical impacts, and I think that's often underestimated. I have done quite a bit of research in this biosphere reserve, and we asked 30 randomly selected farmers from a pool of 860 farmers. We asked them, how many of you think that your farm will be in production in 50 years? And 2/3 of the people we asked said that they don't think that their farm will be in existence in 50 years, and that's mainly because of the lack of economical sustainability, which is sort of sad, I think, and something we can work on, like with this initiative. And then I go eastwards to West Estonian Archipelago Biosphere Reserve in Estonia. And as you can see, this is a flat landscape in the Baltic Sea, containing lots of big islands. They have lots of semi-natural habitats, such as alvars and coastal meadows. And they're also very old, and they have agricultural practices like grazing and haymaking that is still in operation. And they also have lots of international projects that focus on nature-based solutions in these landscapes to address the challenges of climate change and sustainable food production. So they have a lot in common with the Norwegian Biosphere Reserve, but of course, being on only these very flat islands also represent a lot of issues that is in addition to the ones that we experience. So even though there's many commonalities, there is also, of course, something unique to all of these biosphere reserves. And then I include this Mont Saint-Hilaire biosphere region in Canada, because North America with the USA and Canada are also part of Euromap. And as you can see, this is also a rural landscape with a lot of agriculture, and here they promote organic farming and other nature-based solutions to build resilience and also preserve this rich biodiversity in this region. So that's another example of a biosphere reserve that has focused specifically on agroecology and on sustainable practices to safeguard both biodiversity but also cultural diversity. And then my last example is from Castro Verde Biosphere Reserve in southern Portugal, which is in the middle of a very intensely run agricultural landscape. And as you can see of the picture here, that it's dominated by cereal steppes. And it's also extremely old food producing landscape with extensive farming practices. And they have also in this landscape, they also have a couple of very endangered birds, like the great buzzard and Montagu harrier. And you can see pictures up to the left there of these birds that are quite special in Europe. And it takes a special kind of conservation and agricultural practices to maintain these bird populations. And you can see also that they have a lot of different honeys, and they have a lot of agricultural products, also wool. I think maybe wool products are the common denominator for all these 4 biosphere reserves that I have presented here. And then they also have an exhibition with some very, very in-depth stories from women growing up in this farm community over a very long period of time, which is also very enriching, because then you get different stories of land use and also of ways of running the land. Yes, so then I don't know how I'm doing on time, but I'm wrapping up, and then I am bringing it back to the bigger picture, to EU's Green Deal that strongly supports agroecology, at least in theory, as a key component of transforming agriculture to become more sustainable. And this is also integrated in the farm to fork strategy. And agroecology is seen as crucial to meeting the Green Deal's climate, biodiversity, and circular economy goals. And also the biodiversity strategy for 2030 highlights agroecology as a way to restore ecosystems and to reduce the pressures of agricultural expansion on the natural habitats. And then I think I'll skip the eco schemes, but they're also important, even though they are practiced a little bit differently throughout Europe. And I can just say that Norway is not part of the EU, but we sort of adhere to the fashions of of the EU. So even though we're not part of the EU, we sort of have the same structures and movements within the agricultural field. And then I thought I would just end with pointing to this, which is the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that has been mentioned here. The negotiations or the talks started today in Cali, in Colombia. And I think agriculture has a lot to offer in order to be able to fulfill these 23 goals. So I think, and of course, goal 10, sustainable agriculture and aquaculture, fisheries and forestries, is of course given, but I think also a lot of the other ones, at least agroecology and nature-based solutions, can contribute a lot towards these goals. And I think it's important that everybody working with biosphere reserves connects it both to this New Deal for Nature, but also, of course, the SDGs and the Agenda 2030 work. And I think we need to get people involved, because if people are the problem, then people are also part of the solution. And I think it's very important to include young people in discussions on future agricultural practices as well. And I think this is a great picture illustrating very young members of the community trying to move sheep in the Nordhordland UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. And then slightly older youth, we need to incorporate focus on agroecology and nature-based solutions for a more sustainable food system, also across the school system and educational system. And we run a lot of workshops with youth, and these are high school kids. Yes, so I think to sum up, agroecology is a nature-based solution, which very plainly works with nature instead of against it. And agroecology and nature-based solutions in biosphere reserves offer practical examples of how biodiversity conservation can be aligned with agricultural sustainability, providing models that could be applied more broadly across Europe and, of course, beyond. So I think I say thank you, and I'm very sorry for the technical issues, but I hope you managed to follow along and see some of the illustrations here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Inger. No worries about the issues. There are always some technical glitches anyway. So thank you very much. This has been really, really interesting, both presentations. And they've shown a very wide and broad panoramic of everything that can happen in biosphere reserves. Now I would like to open the floor to the audience. I think we already have a comment about actually defining agroecology as a nature-based solution. This is from Fabien Couffel, and it essentially depends on how the agroecological solutions and nature-based solutions are implemented, because they can be taken from different angles. So if they tick all the boxes, essentially, then they can also be considered as a nature-based solution. But they certainly, agroecology certainly has a principle can be taken from different angles. But perhaps Fabien can further explain what you wanted to say, Fabien?
Yeah.
Yes, hello. Thank you. Okay, I think you can hear me. My point here is not to delve much into the concept of nature-based solutions, because we could talk quite a long time. But I just wanted to put a finger on the necessity of using the standard, global standard for NbS, which has been developed by IUCN. And I was wondering if the projects which have been presented today have been assessed through these global standards, because it is a necessity to assess all the dimensions of nature-based solutions projects, because not only they have to provide benefits for biodiversity and global challenges, but as it was pointed during the presentations, provide multiple benefits for the governance, for the community, and also the economy. And we need to make sure for each project that it is the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabien. I don't know which one of the speakers would like to address this.
No, I think, yes, I agree with you, of course, but none of the projects that I presented, or at least my part in those projects, have not specifically assessed nature-based solutions with a global standard, no.
Yeah, so I just add something. We all agree here, but even if I don't tick yet all the cases, all the questions of the global standard, they show a high potential of being called nature-based solution. So that's just a matter of definition, and to follow the guidelines of IUCN here. Also, I would like to raise another subject, which is raising also in the scientific community, the link between protected areas and nature-based solutions, because it is widely discussed now, since the frontier is quite small, and not always well understood between what is protected area and what is an NbS. And some people call a protected area, an NbS, and some other people like me are saying protected areas are like a good um, a good start for implementing NbS projects, but as such, they don't represent an NbS because they don't necessarily show a global a challenge beside protecting biodiversity. So this is not something to be discussed here, but I'm very interested in these presentations.
Thank you, Fabio. We have also a comment from Paula Silva from Portugal, I understand. And she mentions, until now, there has been no agreed framework or standard as to what constitute an effective nature-based solutions. And that is cited from IUCN. So Paula, perhaps you want to comment further.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for organizing this conference online. Really, I'm just learning, you know, and I was really wondering what exactly is the extent and the scope of nature-based solutions, you know, if agroecology is or is not. And I really don't have anything to add from my personal view. I just put that there because it could be something useful as a resource that I'm also checking now. So that's all. And I'm sorry, I really have to leave because it's I think it was the time I should the meeting should end and I have an appointment. But I really want to thank you all and the speakers for bringing their experiences, their expertise, and to the commission, and to all of you that are using your time to organize this so we can learn more and discuss more. All the best to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Paula.
I don't know, Sarah, maybe
Yeah,
do you have
actually
any? Okay.
one comment and a question. Yeah, I think because several different entities are involved, and there's IUCN, there's UNESCO, and Inger presented and cited key frameworks regarding agroecology. So it's important that we, so Gleesman, the 5 levels, and also Vessel and their work that they continue.
Altieri.
Yeah, and Altieri, and then there's a further a recent paper on the economic impacts of agroecological solutions. So it's important that we bring some sort of clarity around the approaches, and sometimes we are actually doing something very similar, but they're actually not a standardized way of saying I'm actually going in that direction or in another direction. So depending on the pathway that we chose or the group that we're working with, it appears on the surface, it appears that there are strong differences, but in reality, if we look, we often go for a similar goal. So I found that enriching and also stimulating, because I think it helps us see that we actually all want something that is very, very similar. And the way we want to assess it and the way we want to design the framework, that's sort of a technicality, let's say. And that's my personal opinion. But as long as we try to contribute somehow to the transition to something more sustainable and a more efficient and fair use of the resources for the community and for the environment as well. So that's what I think was highlighted as far as I could see by the speakers. So Gilbert, we have another raised hand.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I totally agree with you, Sarah, that we ought to agree on the principles of this conservation approaches, and we have to customize it to different regions as long as we aim for the same principal objectives. So you have to really set the ideas that we want to reach for, and we have to say which areas of conservation and combinations of actions that take us to those objectives or ends. Then we can customize it to different conditions. I could pick it from the different examples during the presentations that it depends on the ecosystem on which you are operating. You have different resources, you have different environments, but you want to combine them and manage them in such a way that the environment benefits as much as communities benefits, and it's a secular kind of approach. And I think we have to work on maybe standardizing the principles. And like the other gentleman, I forget his name, who made some extended comments at the end of the presentations, that we also have to have standards in place. That also needs to be customized in different tiers, high tiers, middle tiers, and low tiers in terms of stringent standards. In areas where resources are abundant, we can have more stringent standards, but in areas where maybe resources are not too so abundant, then we can lower the standard. And I think we also need to share ideas like those presentations, if there was a way of maybe sharing them so that we can cascade them more and sell the ideas so that we can inculcate those in our curricular development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gilbert.
Thank you.
That was, I don't know if the speakers want to comment or...
No, I just think I want to point out that the biosphere reserves, they cover 6% of the Earth's surface. That's quite a lot, especially when we talk about 30 by 30. So I think, and that's why I think, and they are mostly working landscapes. There are people and there is nature in all of them, which is a great starting point for you know, enhancing sustainability in like everyday landscapes. So I think yes, I haven't worked specifically with nature-based solutions according to the IUCN standards. We've been looking more at NCPs and other aspects of sustainability. So that will be interesting to look more into. And of course, there is a lot of overlap, but I think like most people here say that we agree that there is a lot of overlapping issues, and it's good to discuss these principles because we seem to be all advocating for a more sustainable development.
Thank you, Inge.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I actually have a question that basically leads from one of the slides that Kalina showed, and then now that we are talking about standards and frameworks and so on, it kind of links to another slide that Inge showed. When Kalina mentioned the difference between the synthetic essential oils and the natural ones, and the impact that that the production and that the size of the production has on actually the conservation of some species. I thought about the fact that several perfumes, especially old ones, let's say, the ones are more, say, for example, like you mentioned, Chanel No. 5, or some old-fashioned ones, yeah, they tend to be much more expensive than the ones who are sort of seasonal. So you have 1 year, like for example, Calvin Klein, CK1, or etc., and every year there's a different versions and so on. So the modern ones, let's say, they tend to use more synthetic components. And that's also why they are cheaper. So they are cheaper, but at the same time, they pollute more. And on the other hand, we saw that there in the experience that you've shown, there's actually a chance to use a market opportunity that also benefits conservation, if I understood correctly. So I find that really encouraging, and that made me think of one of the slides of Inger, where you showed the Gleesman's 5 levels of transition, and they are numbered. And many times people think that we should start from the first level and then the second and then the third. But in reality, the transition can happen from any of those 5 levels. So in some cases, it can start from a sort of economic driver, and in some other cases, there can be an environmental driver. So I was wondering, in your experience, like, which one did you find that is most appealing or stronger, whether it's an economic driver or an environmental driver for change or for, fostering the transition? That's a question for both speakers, I suppose.
So I will give my brief contribution. I don't have that experience, but just looking at this example, I think the change came from the market that was demanding more natural sources of products, and people were wondering where their food come from, bringing what Inger brought here, that especially in Brazil, we have a lot of products that are consumed by population like on a regular basis. And when this market started to grow, such as Brazil nuts and acai, berries, people wanted to know where they come from. So the market was wanting to understand the supply chain and the visibility, the transparency. So this project started like 5 years ago to understand that it was important for the market and invested that on developing the supply chain that was very clear and fair and transparent. And this started the change because the industry and the people said, oh, so it's possible to have a perfume that we know where the fragrance comes from. It's important to know that my purchase is helping to sustain a community in the Amazon. So I think it was the market that started, but people also was demanding from the market to have better options. So I think it's both sides. So my argument is that it's economic. The change comes from the economic drives in this case, and it's our responsibility or our role to understand how can our project can benefit from this drive, that it's not the conservation, but we can go through conservation, look into the market. So I think it's one way to see it.
Thank you, Kaline. Have you seen similar situations, Inger?
No, I can't think of any examples on the top of my head. But I think Kaline's example was really nice. I really liked it. But we also see that, of course, we look at a lot of the environmental drivers in these biosphere reserves. But of course, when we start talking to people and asking them about what is the limiting factors, it's always the economy. Because these are, especially if people try to keep traditions alive, it's labor intensive. It's not part of how modern life works, right? And it's very hard to keep going. So that's definitely a big limiting factor.
Thank you. Any more questions from the audience?
I think that, well, maybe the time is over already.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to land an uncomfortable question, maybe, but I think that may spark debate. So, how can we deal with these inconsistencies that Inger mentioned, related to the complicity between the local and the global? I'm referring specifically to how can we deal with the contrast in the amount of, for example, the waste that that the Louis Vuitton company generates worldwide, with the funds it provides to the projects such as Amazonias, the one that Kaline has presented, so that this type of initiatives can be carried out in a specific territory. So, I mean, is a biosphere reserve approach enough to change things on a global scale? How can we deal with this kind of inconsistencies?
That's a very big question.
Huge.
I think somebody will get the Nobel Prize if they get find the answer.
That's why I said it's uncomfortable and maybe it's
We're ambitious.
ambitious. Yeah. I would like to know yours or your opinion. I mean, it's like sometimes.
Yeah, but that's I think that's maybe why I have been a bit reluctant to use the term nature-based solutions very much, because I'm so afraid of greenwashing. I've seen that in so many other projects that I almost feel that it's a bit uncomfortable using the term without being completely sure that I'm using it correctly. And yeah, we haven't touched upon that, but I think that's a huge side effect that a lot of businesses they pay good money for very smart people to brand things and twist things to appear as nature-based solutions.
Yeah, I'm asking this question because the last webinar, we have the participation of another participant belong to this project network, no, in the Amazonias, and he was located in Ecuador, in Podocarpus el Cóndor, and he presented another initiative. So it was very surprise for me just and I would like to answer the question. Of course, side effects. Kaline, maybe you can share something.
Yes, I would not say anything that would compromise myself, but I think it's I mean, it's a great question, and it's also a reason of some of my crisis, but I think it's better if we take the money to do some good than that this money go to somewhere else that don't know what they're doing, or will be even more destructive or more controversial. So I have peace when I think that we are trying to do a great job, and money is just energy, so we need to channel into the good and do what we can.
Thank you, of course.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Team, I also agree, and it's always tricky. For example, a while ago we were talking about sustainability, then we started talking about resilience, then we started talking about and all the buzzwords, and everyone is putting resilience everywhere and they don't even know what it means. Or agroforestry, I work a lot in agroforestry. So many projects about planting trees wherever, even when it doesn't make any sense to have trees there, but it looks good to plant trees. So it's I'm obviously simplifying. It's a much bigger problem, but it definitely is something to keep in mind when we work in those areas. So well, I think we have run out of time. Unless we have further questions, I think we need to wrap up. So I would like to thank both our speakers. It's been a really interesting debate, and we're very grateful to have had you here, and I've seen the work you are involved with. So I would like to also thank my colleague Esperanza for helping me organize this, and the support from the IUCN CEM network, and all the audience that participated and attended this webinar. So we'll have another four webinars next year. The plan is to have them in several languages, but at least two webinars will be in English. So stay tuned, and we'll let you know as soon as possible for the next event. But thanks again, thanks everyone, and I wish you a very pleasant rest of the day or good night, depending on where you live. Thanks again, and see you soon.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.